depending on the withdrawal rate that you think you want to utilize, that will change how much you need,
Hmm.
right? So that's a really simple example. If we say we need 12,000 a month now, 10 years from now, if I just inflate 12,000 a month by 3% a year, that means I need $16,127.
Hmm.
And if I know my value in my portfolio is $4,735, well, I can get a sense of what a withdrawal rate is on that, right?
Yeah, and when you say withdrawal rate, I think it's also important for us to understand like the framework of really what we're talking about, right? You
Yep.
mentioned it's the number of the dollar amount we're taking out divided by the assets that we have.
Yep.
And that usually gives us a nice framework or a lens when we talked earlier about the 4% rule,
Yep.
right? When we divide those two numbers, traditionally what we like to see if it falls somewhere in the range of 3.5, 4, all the way up to, and this is where we could have differences depending on what age we're at or how old we are,
Yep.
maybe 5, 5.5, even 6% before we really run into that danger zone, right?
Yeah.
So that's healthy and that's something you definitely should be monitoring.
Yeah. And where you're at in retirement will
Mhm.
mean a lot of different things to that. Like the thing that I think about for the example I just painted, someone who's maybe 52 now and wants to retire at 62. Well, we can paint that picture for they're saying I spend 12,000 a month, and that's great. But I think something we'll have to do another episode on in the future is does that include healthcare costs?
Well,
Because
I'll
you
do
don't
you
get
one
to have
better.
Medicare until you're 65, right? So if you retire, now we need to have healthcare costs, and healthcare costs are really large. So, for a family of four right now, we pay, I think, something to the tune of like $30,000 a year for healthcare costs. So it's like, we just need to be mindful of do we have all the expenses baked in? But then once we have that, by which do we believe is a good withdrawal rate for us to choose so that we can decide how safe do we feel? And I think the other component there that we're not going to dive too deeply into today is just kind of this idea of your hatchet withdrawals from your portfolio. And I call it a hatchet because there's this thing coming for most people, which is Social Security. But when you retire at 62, you're probably going to want to delay it until at least 67 and maybe age 70. So you're going to need to take a lot from the portfolios on the front end, which is going to be big withdrawals. And then when Social Security hits, the withdrawals needed from the portfolio are going to go down. So you just want to be really mindful of that for yourself.
Yeah, and on that same note, I used the phrase last time sequencing. That's the only time I'll say that word today. But understanding how much money we need at a different time or benchmark, in your 60s versus your 70s is one thing. But
Yeah.
to your point on healthcare, I think another thing that people often at times overlook is where are we taking the money out from? Because
Mm-hmm.
if to your point, if we need $16,000 and it's coming from cash, fantastic. That makes it really easy. But if it's
Uh-huh.
coming from an IRA, ooh, we gotta account for ordinary income taxes, and we may now need to take out $20,000 to be able to cover that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now our withdrawal rate, it just moved from 4.5% to 5.2 or something like that. And so that's oftentimes something that gets overlooked, which could put us in the danger zone of running out of money or depleting it at a faster rate.